So I just wanted to let you know there are many ways of going about doing your journal entries. You can take your towel or your blanket or your folding chair right out into your yard and sit down and draw or investigate the things that you see around you. You can choose some of the prompts, the journal entry prompts that are in the resource folder, and use those. You can go for a walk and take photos and then come back and use your photos to make drawings from and write about some of the things you noticed on your walk. I'm going to take a bike ride, and as I ride along, I am going to stop and take some photos and check out what I see on the bike path and maybe put a journal entry together about those things. So be creative. If you have questions, ask, send me an email, come to office hours, whatever you need to do. I'm here to help you. And I hope this is a fun project. There's a lot to it. But I think being outside this time of year is really nice. So I will show you what I find on my bike ride. Oops, one last thing. I'm always forgetting something. So if you go outside, however you go outside, you want to make sure you're safe, that you have long pants on so you don't get bitten by mosquitoes or ticks or things like that. Use a little bug spray. Make sure you have your sunscreen on. It's a good idea to have a water bottle. All of those kinds of things. And if you're going to use one of the prompts from the list that I suggested, make sure you check with your grown-ups that it's okay for you to do that. You need permission first, okay? All right, so now I'm gonna go on my bike ride. Hello again. Now I'm on the bike path, and I am going to be keeping my eyes open and looking around for things that are interesting in nature. It's very early in the morning. It's 5:30 a.m. Nobody's out here really but me and the birds and the natural world. And as I find interesting things along the way, I'm going to stop and show you to maybe help give you some ideas of the kinds of things you could look for to put into your nature art journal. I'm off my bike now, and I stopped near Hart Pond. I don't know if you recognize this spot. There's the parking lot and the lake, or the pond. And I remember from last year there were some flowers here that are endangered, an endangered species, and they're called lady slippers. So I'm going to go see if I can find some if they're back again this year. And I found one. Here is an endangered lady slipper. And as I look around, there are a few more here. There's another one. They're beautiful. And there's another one. So I'll probably put those in my journal on one of my entry pages. I'm going to go look for other things. If you do find an endangered species like a turtle or a frog or a toad, or come and see the lady slippers, be very gentle with them. Watch where you're stepping, and we're trying to preserve them so that they're here again in the future. Okay, now I'm stopping at Hart Pond, and I'm going to look around and see what kinds of interesting things I see here. There's actually a news truck here with a filming crew. I don't know what they're up to, but they're making a video as well. Here's an old log lying on the ground. Sometimes in old logs or under rocks you can find some interesting things. So I'm just going to, this is very soft and a little rotted. I'm going to see if there's any little things in here. I don't have a glove, but if you do something like this, it might be, ooh, look at that. Very cool. Eggs and ants. Let me get close up there. Wow. Definitely something I might want to put in my journal. They're scared. They're taking all the eggs and stashing them somewhere safe. I'm going to close this up and let them be. Okay, there's a pair of ducks here hiding behind that tree. There's one. That looks like the female. And there's the male hiding behind that tree. Let's see if I can get a better look at him. Oh yeah. There he is. Looking for food. Okay, I'm stopping here again because I hear a bunch of frogs, and I wonder if I might be able to see them. If you're going to walk into the woods, make sure you have on long pants
and bug spray, and it is important to have gloves if you're going to start exploring things. I don't have them with me right now, which was a mistake, but if you go out, you really want to make sure you have some gloves. And another good thing to have is a magnifying glass if you've got one of those around the house. There are frogs in there somewhere. I'm not dressed quite the right way to go tromping through there, but I can hear them, and every now and then I can see a ripple. So maybe I will put some ripples in my nature journal to show that there's a little ripple right there. And I stopped again because I noticed this old dead tree with all these holes in it. It looks like maybe some birds have made nests in there, or woodpeckers maybe have gone in there looking for bugs or insects or something like that. It's kind of a cool thing. These are called stags. A dead tree that is like this is called a stag. And here's something I found on my nature bike ride. Kind of interesting, but it doesn't count for my nature journal because it's man-made. Someone lost their hat. Here's another log with some bark that's peeling. I'm going to just take a look and see if there's anything underneath there. Different color. Some holes in there. I don't know if you can see them. Signs of insects or bugs. And there's some more holes in the log to match. So something is living in there, even though I can't see what it might be. I'll peel off another little piece and see what's there. More holes in the inside of this bark. Cool. And here's a tree that has all this cool lichen on it. It's a bit like moss, only it's a little different. It's got a lot of lichen on it. So that's cool. It might have to be creative to find a way to show that in a drawing, but it certainly has a lot of texture. Some simple yellow flowers. Some dried out flowers. They look a little bit like dandelions, but they're not quite dandelions. New growth on a pine tree. You can see the light green pine needles are the newer ones from this spring, and the dark green ones have been there through the winter. Some purple flowers. And here are some different kinds of mosses mixed in with some pine needles. This is called star moss. And this green kind here, I can see if I can find it. I'm not sure what that light green kind is called. Just some interesting roots here on this tree or bush. That could be something to draw.
I'm back in the studio, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the studio habits of mind, observe and reflect, because like I said earlier, there's some confusion about this, and I want to try to clear that up. So I'm going to use the two artworks that are behind me to talk about these differences and try to give you a better understanding of what these terms mean. So I'm going to read to you the definition here of observe. Observe. I can look carefully and see or notice things that might otherwise not be noticed. Okay, you're going to be doing that outside with your nature journal project. I can use my careful observations in my artwork. You're going to be doing that as well. You're going to use the things that you see, and you're going to incorporate them into your nature art journal. So let me show you how I did that on a painting that I made. This is a very large painting that I made 2 summers ago, and I used observe. I used observe a lot in this painting. This did not come from my imagination. I went out into my garden where I had 2 different kinds of daylilies growing, these orange ones and these yellow ones. I picked some of the daylilies and I brought them inside, and I drew them by looking at them carefully. So looking carefully and observing and trying to create the flowers the way that I saw them is using observe. I was observing the flowers and trying to show how they looked. Okay, I also observed the stems, and I observed the leaves and the foliage that the flowers were growing out of. I used a lot of observation to create this painting.
Now I also use the studio habit of mind, reflect, and I'm going to read that definition to you as well. So reflect says I can learn and use the vocabulary of art and what I know about how artists work to judge my work and the work of other artists. I can revise my work after reflecting on it to make improvements. So in this way, reflecting is more like thinking. It's not really observing to try to show something, make something look the way that you see it. So when I was reflecting on this, I was thinking, what shade of blue do I want to use in the background? Should it be a very bright blue or a very light blue? And I tried a lot of different shades of blue, and I reflected on them. I thought about them until I got the one that I liked.
Now, both observing and reflecting involve looking, and I think that's part of the reason there's some confusion. And there's other kinds of looking, right? There's looking for materials. There's looking for your pencil. There's looking for objects that you can use in your found object sculpture, for example. That's not observing. That's looking for things. Observing is looking carefully and trying to show artistically what you see. Okay, so that I think it's the looking part that gets people mixed up. And the reflecting also involves looking. So when you're reflecting, you're looking at your own work, you're thinking about how it's going, and you're making decisions. There's a lot of decisions involved in reflecting about what to change, what to leave as it is, and how you might want your work to come out. So I'm going to show you one more thing. This is a wall hanging quilted project that I'm working on. It's these dancing figures in the center and then a lot of things that are going to go around the outside edge. I haven't done them yet. But I want to talk about reflecting on this because that's the stage that I'm at right now. There's no observation here. I'm not looking at anything and trying to draw it the way that I see it. I am using my imagination. I'm using my memory when I made these figures. I didn't look at anything. I just used what was in my head. But I'm noticing when I look at it, again, I'm using that word look, and I reflect on it, I don't have enough contrast here. This dark brown is almost the same value in darkness as this purple. And from a distance, it doesn't show up very well. So I've got to do something about that to make those purple pants stand out. And what I thought I might do is embroider around the edges with a light color so that it will pop out. I have another value contrast problem over here because I have this black border that goes around this inside panel, and I wanted to put a black border around these colorful squares here before I added on the next section. But this does not have good contrast. This black and this navy blue are both very dark and doesn't show up very well. So I'm not going to use this black for that border. I thought what I might use instead is this bright green. So there's a lot more contrast here. This green color to me goes with the other colors that are in the wall hanging. And so I'm reflecting to improve my work. I'm looking and thinking and making decisions. I'm not trying to draw this. That would be observing. Okay, so in this second video, we talked about going outside safely, and we talked about what kinds of things that you might look at or notice in nature, either on a bike ride or on a walk or in the woods or around your house. And we talked about the difference between the studio habits of mind, observe, and reflect. So that's it, and this is the end of our last lesson. I am looking forward to seeing the images from your nature journal, and I again hope you have fun doing this. Enjoy your time outside, and I hope you find some cool things. Okay, bye.